So, hi guys, Simon Briggs from SUSE. I actually work as it says on the screen, guys. Can you output the screen? So, no, we can't output the screen. I can see it on that screen. Super, Simon Briggs from SUSE. Nice to see you. You can move to the front. You're the two guys I'll talk to. Everybody else I know in the group. So I actually work out of the UK. I'm the Europe, Middle East and African technical specialist for SUSE around OpenStack. I would like to quickly take a moment to thank OpenStack for the opportunity to come to Sydney. Great town, never been before, so great adventure for me. It's also always an honour to get a chance to speak, even if only two people sit down in the chairs. Anybody else in the room, if they'd like to join us, we'll talk about OpenStack. So, the idea of the conversation is really just to explain to organisations that you might already have started your journey with OpenStack. You might have started exploring it, but actually you might be thinking at this stage that you actually want to go further with the product. And that's really where SUSE come in. SUSE can help organisations get the best out of their investments around OpenStack Cloud. The reason why we can do that is, one, my life is OpenStack Cloud, so I care very intimately about it. But I only care about OpenStack because my business cares about OpenStack. So SUSE was a founder member, a platinum member of the OpenStack Foundation. That means Alan Clark, who works for SUSE, is actually a member of the board. He's the chairman of the board. And we have actually had, or we've been delivering an OpenStack distribution longer than anybody else in the market. We're the original OpenStack distribution came out on the Essex release, if any of you are old enough to remember that. I know it wasn't that long in years, but in OpenStack terms, it was a whole generation ago. Obviously, we work upstream, so a lot of our developers work in the upstream community. We do a lot of work generally through the OpenSUSE community for OpenStack. And I wanted to call out the fact that very recently, you might have seen on the news that we acquired the Helion assets from HPE. So HPE invested heavily in OpenStack, had their own distribution. Eventually, they decided it was a little bit more than they wanted to be working in that particular space. And SUSE took on all the IP, the skills, essentially the people, brought them into SUSE. So we're a much larger organization now working in the OpenStack community. Been a great boon for my business. So actually, why does SUSE think it's so important? Well, first of all, if you see on the left-hand side here, the drivers that organizations are looking at when they're thinking about open source, and particularly OpenStack within their business, they want to get the cost benefits that open source might want to offer. They want to work with open standards. They want to move away from a world where vendors lock them in and they have to buy castles of specifically colored stacks that will only work with that vendor's tooling. And they want to be able to port their solutions much more agilely, much more rapidly. But there's concerns over that. So OpenStack delivers that capability. But organizations are starting to find more and more that working upstream, they worry about where support might come from. The upstream community is fantastic. We're all part of it. They will help you when they can, but sometimes they're not there when you need them. Or actually, they're working on something else that's more important to them individually, and they're not going to give you the time you need. So that supportability becomes a concern. Upstream is not always the primary concern about enterprise-level security. So organizations are starting to realize that they need to work with vendors who can help them around that. They also want to get broader reach, work with companies like SUSE, who have a great ecosystem in the community, and be able to integrate other solutions to make a much better stack for them to deliver their services upon. And that's really where SUSE comes in, delivering SUSE OpenStack Cloud. Obviously, we work with the core OpenStack services, and we add more value. It's not just the neutrons, the keystones capability within the tooling. Actually, the open source is consistent. So the OpenStack is consistent for any distribution. It is OpenStack. If you're an OpenStack distribution, you do not fork that code base. But what you do is add value around the use of that technology. And one thing SUSE really has worked very hard on is a very reliable, fast management layer to get cloud stood up. We actually advocate it's SUSE's job to not really encourage organizations who consume our software to become master builders of clouds. We're here to make people master builders of services on clouds. We're actually here to make using clouds as simple and straightforward as possible. So our installer, highly efficient, highly capable, gives you a very manageable platform moving forward once you've established a standardized methodology for building clouds. Okay? Very valuable approach. SUSE also, in its DNA, is a very open organization, as you would guess. We work a lot with partnerships. And that means that we like to give choice to any customers of ours. We've got a very wide hypervisor support model. So, yes, you can work with standard KVM, but Zen as an open source hypervisor is still a powerful solution in the market. We are the only vendor to fully support Zen within the OpenStack distribution. You can even run it on ZVM on a mainframe as a compute resource if that's what you want to do, and be fully supported with SUSE OpenStack Cloud. That interoperability story goes even further. So we work with all the major vendors. It is very, very easy using that simple management layer to take, say, a storage solution from a proprietary organization, maybe a NetApp, an EMC, those kind of solutions, and integrate it rapidly into your cloud layer to allow you access into that powerful technology you've invested in your data center, not leave that behind as an island that's not available to your cloud service as you develop your solutions. Obviously, SUSE is the byword in rock-solid reliability. Our engineers are some of the best in the industry. It is our 25th year of existence this year. You will see our T-shirts around the show talking about 25 years since SUSE developed its first distribution and went to market. We have all that longevity and maturity behind us as an organization, and everything in OpenStack Cloud is built on SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, so you know you get that rock-solid foundation. Because of that, we understand the business life cycle required from our enterprise customers. So, as you are probably aware, in the OpenStack community, we release code every 6 months, so there's a very high cadence, very rapid change taking place in the code base. Actually, the enterprises that SUSE work with find that a quite aggressive upgrade path to follow directly. So SUSE, some versions ago, went to a yearly release cadence of our support code. So actually, what does that mean? It means that we release in the autumn, on the autumn code base. We're able to backport capability in the spring code base if it's required. But what it does is give us enough scalability, to be able to support that code base for a full 3 years in your operational environment. That's the kind of stability our customers were demanding, and that's now what we're delivering out into the market. We've also worked on that supportability around smooth upgrade capabilities. So upgrade is obviously a massive challenge in the open source upstream community for OpenStack. Many organizations have been burdened trying to upgrade the earlier versions of the code. If you went from Essex upwards, you've probably grown some gray hair in that process, pretty painful. Well, SUSE has been working very hard to make upgradability very smooth, fully supported, automatable if you would like, and where possible, totally undisruptive to your OpenStack environment. Your virtual machine resources on version 6 of OpenStack, which is supported today, when you upgrade it to 7, those resources will not blink in that upgrade process, as long as you do the process according to our prescribed route. And obviously, we've got very extensive support, which I'll go into in a bit more detail. But really, this conversation was meant to be about where the future's going, where you might develop your clouds as you move forward. And actually, I was pleased to hear the keynote yesterday from Jonathan endorse some of the views that SUSE have about the way organizations and OpenStack will need to develop in the future. Integrations are key. SUSE has worked very hard on integrating things like Ironic for bare metal support because it gives great flexibility. The ability to not just run VMs in your cloud infrastructure is key. Containers from Magnum, obviously a very important capability, been around some time, full support with our OpenStack tool. And today, actually, we officially released a press announcement around the fact that SUSE now are delivering a full Cloud Foundry solution that can be based on OpenStack from SUSE, the full platform as a service solution for developers to utilize within their organization. If you want more details on that, it's a story in itself. We have got a stand at the back of this layer here. You can come and talk to us about that in more detail. We also think we need to help drive OpenStack to become more open. Intel are a fantastic partner as SUSE. We do a lot of work with Intel. They are a brilliant organization. But at times in OpenStack, it does feel like Intel is the only answer to any question. What about the ARM chip? Well, the ARM chip's soon going to be supported fully within an OpenStack distribution. It's got to be 64-bit, though, ARM 64 rather than 32. But we are bringing on support for that capability. And the mainframe, we're even extending that capability. So you can actually run the control plane in our next version of OpenStack as well as a compute plane if you want to utilize mainframe services that you already have available. Obviously, it was called out in the keynotes yesterday, the Australian bank that was presented. I've got terrible jet lag, I've forgotten the name, Commerce Bank. They were explaining about physically provisioning hardware into their clouds, and they'd come up with a very elegant but quite complex solution to be able to engineer that through their management of software. And obviously, we perceive that as a challenge to organizations, so we're working very hard on bringing on hardware into the cloud in an automated fashion, really helping organizations move towards that goal of the software-defined data center. Obviously, you can't manage what you can't see, so we're providing tools to give good visibility to organizations that are starting to run on a cloud. In a cloud, by definition, if you're managing a cloud, you might have several tenants who are all doing different things that you haven't direct visibility of. You might not understand that a particular tenant in that cloud is going to introduce another 10,000 virtual machine services overnight. So actually, visibility across the very disparate resources that you have in your cloud and the different tenants in your cloud is a key capability for managing your cloud moving forward, and we can help on that bit more detail as we move through. And obviously, the partner support is critical. We're working all the time with new partners, bringing on plugins to be able to very easily utilize their technology in OpenStack Cloud. What that means in a physical sense, how we're going to change. We're doing a lot of work at the moment to containerize a control plane. Again, yesterday's conversations did discuss the benefits of that and how that can help organizations. SUSE agree, and we're doing the work to drop that code in our next version. Live upgrade capability, we're doing more work on that to make it even more efficient than it is today. We are working, more and more organizations are coming to us and wanting to move towards a much larger scale capability with their OpenStack. Our regions already are working, we know, at many hundreds of compute nodes, and we're extending that barrier all the time. So scalability can work, but actually organizations also want reliability across multiple data centers. They're looking at DR capability even though it's on the cloud control plane. And we're working on that HA component too. HA hasn't gone away from a need within the cloud. Your virtual machines may have become cattle on the whole, but SUSE are finding the odd pet is a necessity in our enterprise customers' environments. And where that's the case, being able to run HA pets within your cloud is a functionality that many of our organizations we work with are asking for, and we're doing some work around that. Key projects that are coming on board, obviously I mentioned Magnum. SUSE is now working a lot with Kubernetes. We're actually delivering our Cloud Foundry solution using Kubernetes rather than Bosch underneath, which is quite a revolutionary technique, allowing organizations, we believe, much more versatility. Ironic, I've called out, Sahara's a big data solution, Murano. They're important projects that we're working with now, seeing an extension of overall capability within our cloud. And it doesn't just go with OpenStack. SUSE actually announced very recently we have got a dedicated container-specific cloud deployment capability now. Containers as a, not containers as a service platform. SUSE containers platform is available now for organizations to drive out specific container clouds if you don't want to drive your containers via OpenStack Cloud. Just looking into the projects we work very extensively with, we've got a very broad coverage nowadays with 7. As I said earlier in the other lines, we're actually looking to extend this across certain capability. The ones in grey we don't support. It doesn't make a lot of sense for us to support OOO, as we do not use OOO for our deployment technology. Other things are coming on board. We are working around them. I mentioned the containers capability is being extended. And importantly, we've also very recently brought on a Monasca capability. Not going to go into it in detail. Come and talk to us on the stand. I've got a colleague sat in this crowd here who's going to speak in more detail about it at 5 o'clock today. One of the sessions, can't remember the room, but the guy sat there, you can talk to him. Sign up for his session in a while. But the Monasca plugin does give us that visibility I was talking about from a management point of view, to give you the visibility to make sure you can manage effectively the services that you're delivering out in your cloud moving forward. And really this side is to stress that SUSE believe our job is to make these things very easy. The infrastructure or plumbing that you would use within your data center, to allow you to become really effective at delivering these services above, whether it be containers, big data, infrastructure as a service in a pure sense, PaaS as a solution moving forward. We believe that's your job, so allow us to help you achieve this job as effectively as possible. So I have 2 minutes 40 seconds on my large clock. I've got a bigger crowd now. Thanks for being sympathetic and hearing my loud voice. Anyone got any questions? There's a hand, thank goodness. So, Helion OpenStack, right. I am not a Helion OpenStack expert. I've been working with SUSE for the last 8 years. So, but I do know that very recently the version 5 was released for HOS. I am not sure whether or not that upgrade path is totally non-disruptive. I believe it is a manageable process from talking to people and relatively painless if you are going from 4. I don't know what position you might be in. If you're going from 3 or 4? Oh, you're on 4. As I understand it, it should be fairly painless. If you'd like to come to the stand and talk to us in more detail, I'll be able to plug you into people who know far more about HPE Helion than I ever will. Just to call out what we are doing around Helion, it's a good reminder. I've got terrible jet lag. I forgot to underline it. In the next version of SUSE OpenStack Cloud, which will be 8 for SUSE, we will merge the code bases. So there's many things in Helion we think were brilliant and we wanted to bring into our code base. And at that point, there's things good in SUSE OpenStack Cloud as well. We will marry the two together. What HPE will choose to do is up to them. They still have the brand Helion, so they could still OEM badge what we do, or they could just take SUSE OpenStack Cloud and move forward. Ultimately, it will be the same code base from the next version onwards, more than likely HOS 6. But I can't promise because I'm not a HPE employee. So, yeah, video me. They're videoing at the back anyway. So I've got 38 seconds and I can't tap dance. So any other questions? I'll let you go. Come and see us at the stand. We've got loads of giveaways. Thanks, guys.